And joining us now, we have former MSNBC host and contributor to Washington Monthly, Chris Matthews, back with us, and author and columnist Joe Klein is with us as well. It's good to have you both. So, Chris, your big takeaway after last night's results, especially as we look ahead to New Hampshire, and also the line that really has been drawn in the data that we're seeing, that was presented at the top of the show by Steve Kornacki, between Trump's legal cases and strengthening MAGA support for him.
Right. Well, I hope the people that are voting for Trump in these primaries enjoy the tyranny that may be coming to this country, because the tyranny is what it's about. When 62% of the people say they don't care if he's been convicted or if people he pardons were committing crimes and felonies, in the case of 200 people that raided the Capitol on January 6th, that's 200 people that have pled guilty to felonies. And they're going to think about, that's what I wrote about in the Washington Monthly this morning. What they have to think about is their own rights. Women's rights, of course. He doesn't believe in women's rights. He believes women needed to be punished. That's what he told me. He wants the punishment. Where's he on civil rights? Where's he on any rights? And I think about Obamacare, the 20-some million people that have Obamacare now, he's determined to get rid of it. He wants to have a 10% tax on the consumers for buying goods from overseas. He's the only guy talking about tax increases. So I think a lot of people that think, oh, it's great, he had a lot of fun there on January 6th. He enjoyed himself sitting in the little room next to the Oval Office, watching crimes being committed, watching police officers being assaulted, people ramming their way through the speaker's lobby. That's fun, but they're not the victims yet. And that's what people have to think about. Tyranny has victims. And the people out there who start thinking what a yuck it is that this guy can get away with murder, they think it's funny because it's not affecting them yet. And I'm telling you, when the people start counting up, what's a tyrant going to be like? Is he going to be nice to me? I don't think so. And I think Trump is not the nicest guy in the world. Let's face it. He's not the nicest guy in the world. And why people think it's great that he's backing up criminals and that he's committing how many crimes he himself. Right. And by the way, E. Jean Carroll, if it's your daughter, it's your sister, it's you. Are you rooting for him in that case? Are you saying he's innocent? Innocent? He's not innocent. Yeah. He's guilty. And I think we got to start thinking about not how people are polling, but what their attitude is when they poll. I know they don't like the government. They don't like the big shots. They don't like the elite and all that. But do they really want this guy? Do they really want this guy to control their lives? And I think we got to think, and Biden's got to think about this too.
Yeah, he does. And I mean, who's the big shot? That's the funniest part of this, Joe Klein. You got a guy from Scranton, Pennsylvania, whose dad was unemployed, who struggled, grew up in a working class family, who carries around a picture of his young daughter who was killed in a car accident 50 years ago, who has pictures of his son who died of cancer and openly tears up and weeps and says, he should have been the president, not me. This is a guy who struggled just like so many working class people in Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. But again, in this sort of bizarro world, he paints himself as a working man's hero. And last night, Iowans bought into it. And the Republican Party, at least 14% of voters did there. And so they didn't care if he committed crimes. They don't care if he's convicted. They don't care about anything. They just want their retribution.
Well, Joe, I have to say, I covered 11 Iowa precinct caucuses, starting in 1976, almost 50 years. And I think that when I total it all up, I probably spent more than 2 years of my life in Iowa, and it was almost always winter. and I don't recognize the electorate that voted last night. I spent many, many years talking to evangelicals in their churches, and shopkeepers and folks having coffee in the cafes. And as a New Yorker, I had to say they were very weirdly nice people. There wasn't an anger to them. There wasn't a side. A lot of the evangelicals were frightened for their children. A lot of them were in families where both mom and dad worked, and they were worried about what their kids were doing after school. And if they were in the church group after school or the sports league or Bible study, they felt a lot more comfortable. There was never the kind of anger and irrationality that you saw last night. And to me, that is extremely troubling. And it makes me very sad because you can't get a more American place than Iowa. And the two numbers from the entry polling that stick out are the ones that Chris just mentioned and Vaughn mentioned and you mentioned. 62% of the people think that the election was stolen. So that means they don't have very much faith in our democracy. It also means that they don't have very much faith in the second pillar of our democracy, which is the judiciary, because if he gets convicted, they'll still vote for him. It means that they don't care all that much about democracy anymore.
Yeah, it's 66%. And that is, again, as you said, Iowa nice. We've spent a good bit of time there as well. We all have, and we like people in Iowa. This is again, though. I wish I could explain it a different way, but you just can't. Because I've seen it, Joe. They're pumped with disinformation from the time they wake up in the morning to the time they go to bed at night. They're told constantly lies, whether it's on a cable network that they choose or whether it's online. Constant lies, constant conspiracy theories. And so many of the people I grew up with and know after the election, they just spit out things that a website run by a Chinese religious cult was spitting to them. And even after I said, you do understand, this is a Chinese religious cult that you're getting information from, they didn't care. They had a choice between the truth and the conspiracies, and they chose conspiracies. And this is where we are now with the Republican Party.
Well, you know, the other thing is that they kind of took our jobs away from us, because normally on the morning after, we would be talking about scenarios for Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis and how this thing is going to go forward and how New Hampshire is going to play. I don't hear very much of that happening today. Those guys were crushed. And you know, the only logical conclusion you can come to is that punditry at this point about the state of the race and how things are going to go is irrelevant. What you have is this monster who looks strong. And I always go back to what Bill Clinton says: strong and wrong beats weak and right. And as wonderful a man as Joe Biden is, he seems weak.
Well, we will see as he gets out. I liked his speech in Valley Forge. I liked his speech in Charleston. I think we are going to see Biden in campaign launch. But you are so right about the strong and wrong. I mean, Democrats have looked weak for a very long time. I will say, though, Mike Barnicle, we got to have a reality check here. Reality check. I got to say it. It's just the truth. Donald Trump's Republican Party lost in 2017. They lost in 2018. They lost in 2019. They lost in 2020. They lost in 2021. But they got that red wave in 2022 that the media told, oh, no, they didn't. The media was wrong again. They lost in 2022. They've lost in elections in 2023. And my money's on them losing again in 2024. Make no mistake about it. This election last night showed there are people who wanted to vote for a guy who said he wanted to terminate the Constitution, a guy who said he'd be a dictator on day one, a guy who said he wanted to execute generals that he didn't think were insufficiently loyal to him, a guy who said he wanted the economy to crash into a depression, which means all of those Iowa voters would lose their retirement accounts. But that's what he said he wanted because he wanted to be elected president again. This is a guy who, again, trashes the United States, trashes our military, trashes our institutions. He is not a conservative. He's a radical, focused on one thing: the destruction of any institution that can check his power. And by the way, that's not just me saying that. Wall Street Journal editorial pages said that. So many other conservatives have said that. And yet, voters say, we'll vote for the guy who says he's going to be a dictator on day one. Because he's funny. He speaks to us. he's entertaining.
Well, I don't disagree with you, Joe, but I think, we got to take a look at this in a way we have not, Democratic Party at least, has not taken a real look at it. And it is this. You're right. The Republican Party has lost consistently since Donald Trump was first elected in 2016. But guess what? The flip side of that coin is Donald Trump won in 2016. He almost won in 2020. And he's clearly ahead of the field right now and is almost a certain lock to get the nomination to run for the presidency again as a Republican.